Hello guys, this is Jack and today we're going to be reviewing After the Hunt. This is the new Luca Guadagnino film, and just like right from the jump, I'm going to say this. I'm a huge Luca fan. I've seen pretty much every single film that he has made, every short television show, which was We Are Who We Are. I've been following this man ever since Call Me By Your Name, and I think he's one of the best working directors today, and I kind of wanted to talk about his new film After the Hunt, which just premiered this week in New York and LA. As I'm in the city right now, it will be expanding in the next couple of weeks as I'm recording this video. But I want to talk about the mixed reception with this movie, because I'm going to say it right here. I'm slightly positive with this film compared to other people who have been kind of mixed about the movie. And I kind of want to talk about some of the stuff that I personally thought was very provoking and also very frustrating. So let's kind of dive into the movie without spoiling it, obviously, because I don't want to give you a lot of crazy spoilers for this film. So starting from the beginning, you have Julia Roberts, who is a Yale professor, and she is at the top of her game. She is one of the best professors in the campus, and her best friend, Andrew Garfield, is an assistant professor, and he's also very respected in his field. And together, they both are kind of in this kind of throuple relationship, as Michael Stuhlbarg is the husband of Julia Roberts. And from there, these three people are living their best lives. They're inviting people and their colleagues to dinner parties discussing about philosophy and just other stuff that happens in their field. And one of the people that are invited to this party is Ayo Edebiri, and her character is basically this woman who is trying to level up in her master program. And in the beginning, all of these characters are talking at this dinner party. They're having fun. And after the dinner party ends, Ayo's character walks out with Andrew Garfield's character, and the rest of the first 30 minutes of film is implied that Andrew Garfield's character sexually assaulted Ayo's character. And from there, Ayo kind of turns into kind of this woman where she's trying to let out some of the emotional damage and trauma that she went through with Andrew Garfield's character. But she's not telling it in a way where she's bluntly telling that, hey, I was sexually assaulted and this happened, A, B, C, D. Instead, she's kind of implying, kind of alluding to what happened, and she just concludes herself as, yeah, I was sexually assaulted, I want to press charges, and I want him away from the campus. And in the first 30 to 45 minutes, you were following Julia Roberts' character as she's trying to pull the pieces together, try to figure out how to move with the information she just took from Ayo's character and kind of let it out in the open for other people around her to kind of think about. And Chloe Sevigny is also a part of the mix. She's a therapist, and Chloe Sevigny is a woman who is also trying to, keep the information to herself, but also at the same time, she can't help herself. So she tries to talk to Julia Roberts' character later on in the film about it, and it turns into a whole situation where it's just nah, that's kind of messed up, and you kind of are in a malpractice situation with talking to a faculty member about this. So that happens, and then eventually the film just basically unravels into a whole he said, she said situation. On top of that, also dealing with the idea of how information moves around and how it can be construed and how it can be manipulated into conclusions. And from there, the whole entire film is basically about people regressing and progressing to conversations about this incident. And in some scenes, you feel like these characters are progressing. They're really trying to figure out how to move along with the information they got about this terrible, traumatic event. But also at the same time, you'll have moments where the characters will regress, pull back away, really focus on themselves more than other people around them. And I think this film realistically portrays that notion through and through, but it just takes a while to get there. And that's one of the first frustrations that I had with this film, is that Luca tries to do everything. He tries to pull a lot of the emotions of just dealing with like this issue and like the human nature, but also at the same time, it just takes a while to get to that point. And it becomes very drab and dry with a lot of the scenes that continue to go on and on in the middle of the film. And especially with the first screenwriter's screenplay, the whole screenplay is completely contained with academic language, and it's way too heady to the point where it becomes a little bit, I hate to say the word, pretentious, just because of the way these people are talking to each other. They're not talking like, real people who are like in the outside world. They're just like closed inside of their academic world, if that makes sense. And I think with that kind of perspective in mind, for some of you guys who might see this film, I want to like preface that the language in this film is very academic. It's trying really hard to, be smarter than it's supposed to be. And that was like a major problem that I had with this film, was with dialogue kind of like spinning its wheels. But also at the same time, I totally understood what these people were trying to say about the information that were being pulled with Io's character. And eventually the film unravels into like this really psychological thriller with a lot of early 70s, 60s type of like adult drama vibes. And it's mostly coming from like Woody Allen and Jonathan Demme. Jonathan Demme, the latter being one of the best directors in the early 80s to 90s. And Luca really tries to invoke Demme and Woody Allen with just people talking over each other for the nearly 2 hours and 15 minutes of the film. And even though I had some problems with like the screenplay and how it was presented, I think Luca did a pretty good job trying to make it his own thing. And it's very more restrained as far as it being less flashier than Challengers and Queer. But I still think there's some moments where I'm just like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel fully like a Luca film. This just feels like another film that somebody else could have made. But also at the same time, there's moments where, if you saw the trailer or some clips, there's a big moment where Julia Roberts' character is talking to Io's character outside of the campus, and there's like an over the head shadow camera position from the top, and it's very unnerving, and the scene itself is very portrayed as an unnerving moment with these two characters. And I thought like the blocking in that scene was really great. Even when the scene ended, I was just like, damn, that was intense. And then there's also a scene where Julia Roberts is grilling about some text that is being shown in one of her classes, and one of the students is confused about how the text is being portrayed with the overall themes. And by the end of that scene, Julia Roberts is just annoyed and kind of like disgusted by how this student is trying to pull the texts into her own thing. And I think that's mostly the moral message of the film, is taking a lot of the language and dialogue that we have with people and kind of trying to make it our own, to kind of conclude our own perceptions of other people, if that makes sense. And that's mostly just how we operate as human beings, is we just take a lot of the stuff that we see and hear and we come to a few conclusions. And yeah, I think After the Hunt, while it is very heady with its dialogue, very kind of dry and drab with its overall presentation, I still think Luca delivered a really decent film. And sure, it's secondly his worst film compared to Melissa P, but it's one of his most interesting films out of his filmography that I've seen from him. It's like right kind of there with Suspiria as far as an interesting footnote in his entire career, but it's, not definitely better than Suspiria or even Bones and All. But yeah, aside from all that, I think the performances are really strong. Io Debris, even though her character starts out as kind of like this goody two-shoes character in the beginning, eventually the face and peel kind of falls off once you start to realize that her character is trying to battle these other characters around her. And I think Io does a really good job portraying those types of battles. Julia Roberts gives one of her best performances in a long time. She is like at the top of her game. She's more of like the Avatar as in terms of being the all eyes and ears of everything that's happening around her. And she's beautifully restrained and also just cathartically gorgeous. And I would say the same thing with Andrew Garfield, who is the standout in this movie, as he's the bro dude who starts out being kind of like this really cool guy and you want to like hang out with him, and then this incident happens and you just kind of feel the other perspective of his mind, and you're just like, wait a minute, this dude's kind of like an asshole and he's full of himself. But Andrew Garfield played this character fucking well. I was a little bit confused by Michael Stuhlbarg's character because he's kind of like just more of a background character who goes in and out of the scenes trying to convey emotions and feelings for Julia Roberts' character, and then kind of like dips out and also at the same time kind of frustrates other characters. As you know, there's one moment where he's dancing around and trying to take out the dishes and trash while these two women are talking about what just happened a few scenes ago, and it was kind of like a weird framing of like that entire scene. And also I think Chloe Sevigny, her character starts out really interesting, and then eventually she does have kind of like a plot point moment with Julia Roberts' character, and from there she kind of like drops off. But even then, she was good in this movie. But yeah, overall I give this a 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to keep it that way. I'm probably going to see this pretty soon again, because I do think this film deserves a second chance. I totally understand why people aren't vibing with the film. It is kind of like a small L for Luca Guadagnino, and I don't see this film going anywhere with the Oscars. Maybe Golden Globes with Julia Roberts being the only nominee, but I don't really buy that. But yeah, After the Hunt, disappointing, slightly disappointing, decent Luca Guadagnino film. And yeah, I hope his next film kind of like hits all cylinders, because if Artificial is kind of like the same with After the Hunt as far as like reception goes, then yeah, Luca Guadagnino is probably going to be in his L era. But I kind of highly doubt it, because Artificial has a more meatier story as far as showing Sam Altman and his entire crash out a week when he tried to quit OpenAI around that time a few years ago. So I think that film might actually work out in its favor for Luca, but I can't predict the future. I hope you guys enjoy this little tidbit review for After the Hunt. Keep, watching my videos, subscribing, liking, sharing. It helps a lot. I will be reviewing more films off of this little small trip that I had in New York, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. Thank you guys so much. Peace out.